How are you?
Good.
Everybody good? Terrific. Can I hand that to you? Thanks. Thanks to all of you for being here this morning. I've got two subjects that I thought I'd like to visit with you about before I take your questions. First of all, the Affordable Housing Commission has announced their awards for this year, and we continue to prioritize and try to find ways to increase access to housing, stabilize our neighborhoods, and promote living in the city. You all have your stuff all over my... So our Affordable Housing Commission is something that we don't talk about a lot, but it's a critically important agency to our city residents and to our city. In 2002, city voters approved a measure that created the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And the idea was to put money aside, set money aside, to be invested and leveraged to help different organizations pay for affordable housing, rent, mortgage subsidies, and homeless services. So as you know, the city's budget has been and is tight, and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund was not fully funded during the years from 2011 until last year. And so we've made it a priority to fully fund this agency, and in this year's budget we have $5.5 million that we've budgeted. So I'm thrilled to announce that this commission has made over $5 million in grants and loans to various agencies this year, and those are available for you, but going to some very worthy causes. About $400,000 to Gateway 180, which is an emergency shelter, $300,000 to St. Patrick's Center, $200,000 to Doorways Housing Program, $80,000 to Peter and Paul Community Services, $65,000 to Arch City Defenders, and many more. There's a list of probably 30 agencies, but I just wanted to highlight a few of them for you. These dollars, and I think this is an important point, these dollars will help to leverage over $100 million in services because they fill the gap in many of these agencies. So we're happy to be able to do that. The second thing I want to visit with you about for just a minute today is that, as some of you know, we have been searching for a new health director. And we have very capable people who are serving in that role. But after the acting director left last summer, I think it was last July or August, it was important to me to try to appoint a medical doctor to that position. It's been 12 years since the city has had a doctor, a physician, serving as the director of health. So this morning, I'm really thrilled to announce that Dr. Fred Eccles will join our health department on February the 19th. And Dr. Eccles is here this morning. Now, he hasn't started yet, so give him a minute. But he currently works for St. Louis County's Public Health Department. Before that, he worked for the Illinois Department of Public Health. And before that, he was a physician in the Navy. He's someone with a proven background in practicing medicine, has expertise in public health, and a large amount of management experience and expertise. So I think he's a perfect fit to run our health department, and I look forward to working with you, Dr. Eccles, and I certainly look forward to the experience and the expertise that Dr. Eccles will bring to this position. So with that, I'll take your questions.
Mayor, I wanted to talk to you about carjacking. So the police have told us that the carjacking statistics have gone down year to year. Last year, there were 29, this year, 26. But there's also been incidents where there were carjackings and, for example, kids were assaulted, group of teens were assaulted, but because there was no weapon used, that was not classified as a carjacking. The incident with Tom Townsend, where he was shot in the face, but his car wasn't taken, that was not classified as a carjacking. So we want to know, are these statistics really painting an accurate picture of what's going on in our city? Do you think what's been happening in terms of the task force, is that really working?
You know, when you talk about statistics, I think statistics are not the point here. The point is, if you're the victim of assault first, I think, is actually the classification that we have in Missouri. We don't actually have a classification for carjackings. carjackings is a subset of assault first. And if you are the victim of assault first, or if you are the victim of any personal violent crime, the statistics are not what you're thinking about. What you're thinking about is what happened to you and to your family. So I think we take all of the assault first, all of the violent crimes very seriously. As you know, and I think this may be what you were referring to, there were two, I'm going to call them children. They were 13 years old, so barely teenagers, who were assaulted a couple of days ago by 2 or 3 other children. They described them as 13 years old, 14, 15, in that age range, who had a gun. So I think when you have the proliferation of guns that we have here in Missouri, and particularly in the city of St. Louis, it makes the police job really a very, very difficult job. So you asked me about the statistics and is the classification right? There are parameters for those classifications. No one's trying to hide any of the statistics. Take a look at the assault first, and that includes all the carjackings and other sorts of violent crime against people.
Taking account of those assault first, those haven't really gone down either. So what is happening with the task force that you've had appointed?
Well, assault.
Is that working in your opinion?
Homicides are down, assault first are down a little, but again, this isn't about talking about statistics. This should be about talking about people and the effect on people's lives.
So what is happening? Is it having a positive impact on people's lives with the task force and what Chief Hayden is doing to combat carjackings?
I know you're asking about carjackings, and I think that the task force, you would have preferred that we classified the assault on the, well, yeah, let me get my answer out too, okay? So you would have preferred that we classify a crime against persons differently. I hear that, I get that in your question. My point is that all violent crime is serious violent crime, and whether it is classified as a carjacking, as an assault first, they're all very serious, and that's absolutely what both the carjacking task force and the entire police department are working against every single day.
Mayor,
so.
Speaking on the topic of the police force, there's obviously been a lot going on. You have 7 officers charged within the last 2 months with felony crimes. Should residents have confidence, and do you have confidence in the work of the police department?
I think about it in this way, which is that those issues are being addressed, and I personally, for one, am happy that any allegations of misconduct in the police department are being addressed. And while, of course, I hate it that officers have been indicted, I certainly think that if that is the situation, then that is the result.
More specifically, do you have confidence with the chief?
I do.
Mayor, is there any part of the Better Together plan that can be changed? And specifically, you have residents here in the city who are concerned that under the current structure that's been submitted, that they would be represented by someone for whom they didn't vote for a very long period of time. Would you support an election after the statewide constitutional amendment election? Sooner for an executive, or?
That's an interesting question. The reason, and when you say for a very long period of time, you mean 2 years?
2 years.
Okay. The reason for that is so that not every elected official, as I understand it, is new at the same time. So the idea is to get the council in and have this not quite 2-year period of time before the election. I think it would be 21 months, 22 months, something like that, before you elect a new metro mayor. I think that makes some sense as a practical aspect, which is to leave someone in place, get your council elected, be able to begin to implement some of the changes. And then all of the voters, old city and old county, I like to describe it as the old city and the old county coming together as the new metro city to be able to elect their individual.
Why is there a deference to the county elected officials in that period and not to you or to Ken
Well, what there is there's a 2-year, after the vote in November of 2020, so in 2021 and 2022, there's a 2-year transition period with both the county executive and myself, who would then continue to try to put these departments together. Then January, and then in November of 2022, the new council will be elected and take office in January. January of 2023 would be the start of this new government. Now you say, why is there a difference? I think the county, the old county, I'll call it, has 1 million people in it. City has 300,000. I don't see it as a difference, except for the fact that the county executive will become the first Metro mayor. And I understand that. I understand why it's set up like that. So.
Also on the topic of better together mayors, you know there's an effort to get a board of freeholders set up where you would appoint members and
Right.
county executive standing would appoint them. Would you appoint people who would just end up kind of deadlocking on a plan and that puts Better Together's plan up, or would you actually want to see them, debate and come up with a potential alternative?
Well, that would never be my intention, to appoint people that would just go with one plan. But I will say this. The Board of Freeholders is a process that's been in place for decades, and there's been the opportunity, if entities wanted to appoint a Board of Freeholders, there's been the opportunity for them to do that for years and years and years. And I think the only reason that's being floated now is that they don't like the plan that is being proposed, and so they're trying to sort of make a run around that plan.
Mayor, back to police issues. The ongoing comments back and forth between your public safety official, the director, and also the chief, and the city corporate attorney, the back and forth, you could almost call it a feud. What's your reaction to that, and do you have a comment on the whole thing?
My reaction to it is that we all have the same objective, which is a safer city for all of our residents and all of our businesses. So I don't think that's, it's not helpful to have this back and forth. And I hope we can come together and end that process.
Have you talked to the chief and the director about it?
Of course, of course.
Shortly after the shooting, you said you were upset about what happened. Since then, other things have come out, officers possibly drinking on the job, they were not in their
Right.
control section. After talking to the chief,
Right.
do you feel like you got those questions answered?
Well, there is an ongoing investigation. I think you know that. I know that you and others were highly critical that the chief didn't come out the day after or the day after or the day after. I'll be honest with you. I think let us get this police officer buried. Let us pay some deference to her family. I know that your jobs are important, and I know everybody wants to know everything instantly, but I think it was very appropriate to wait a few days. I don't think that, hurt anyone here. So.
But now this week, in talking about, obviously she's been buried, but now I think the citizen concern is, are patrol officers where they're supposed to be? Are you confident
Right.
that the few GPS are going to solve that issue? And how do you give your constituents the reassurance that their officers are where they're supposed to be?
Well, I don't think GPS solves the issue. GPS is a way of checking. What these two officers, the decisions that were made by those officers that day were clearly very disturbing. But I don't think that that's what's happening every day with all of our officers. So while you say, will GPS solve that, I don't actually think that's the question. Yes, I think officers are where they are supposed to be, and yes, I think there'll be more folks checking up to make sure that that is the case.
Mayor, you said you had confidence in the police chief. Do you have confidence in the department as a whole?
I do.
Even given all these problems?
Yeah, because it's if you have a problem, what do you want? You want to address those individual issues. That's a plus. That is a plus. As unfortunate and as much as I don't like that, I would like it even less if there were a problem and we weren't addressing it.
Mayor, a couple questions on chief of the county, Tim Fitch, now councilman, was saying, talking about Metrolink security, that he's upset that the county provides 44 police officers to ride the trains, and the city only 6. And he says, I know you're short, but that the city should dip into the overtime. Do you have any thoughts on whether you should beef up the number of cops riding the trains in the city?
I heard your story, Kevin, on the radio this morning, or maybe it was yesterday.
Make
And
sure you listen to our station, it'll weaken your mind.
yeah, and I heard former Chief Fitch's comments. Yes, I'd like to have more officers on the train. Our officers are working lots of overtime as it is. We've talked about this before, that we need more officers. Yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago now, you probably saw on the chief's Twitter feed that we just welcomed the new class called 19-1 of 31 young folks who are becoming officers. We need more officers. We need more cadets. If any of you know of, I'll get there. If any of you know of someone who wants to be a cadet or wants to be in our academy, we certainly welcome that.
So you got 6. What's your goal? How many cops do you want to ride the trains in the city?
That all has to be balanced with all the other things we have to do in the city.
Okay, fair enough. A big picture question about you and Rex. There's this perception that he's like the man behind the curtain. Nobody knows the influence of the Beatles. Is there anything you can tell us today where you have told him to his face, Rex, you're full of it, or I don't agree with this goal of yours? How are you still your own person and representing the voters who elected you as you?
Well, I think you imply some things that are inaccurate here. First of all, I've seen and met with Rex one time in the last 3 years. So I don't, and I know you all look at my campaign finance reports. I don't have contributions from Rex Singfield. So I look at it strictly on the basis of whether or not what's being put forward is good for our city and good for our residents. Strictly.
Is there anything that you are saying, you know, I'm going to fight the good fight because this part of Better Together is not in the interest of my constituents?
We have done some of that before you ever saw the Better Together. I mean, I was involved with meeting with Better Together. One of the things that I insisted on is that the seat of government for the new metro city be in downtown St. Louis, be in the old city of St. Louis. I think that's really important for a couple of reasons. Imagine how much different things might have been if 150 years ago, when they were thinking of moving the state capital to Jeff City, if someone would have said, no, we're going to have the state capital here. So where you're located matters, and we have a big investment in downtown, and we're going to continue to promote and have a big investment in downtown. I didn't say that it always had to be in this building, but what I did say is that it always has to be.
Would the Council of 33 meet in the Board of Aldermen's chamber?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Likely, the executive branch and the legislative branch will be in downtown. Now, can they, 20 years down the road, 50 years down the road, can they move out of this building somewhere else? That's not what I'm addressing here.
Right.
The building's not important. The downtown location is important.
Let me ask you this, because Korean's about to come out. Your predecessor, Mayor Slay, he really duked it out with Rex one time on the air, saying, I don't like what he's proposing to get rid of the earnings tax.
Yeah, I was involved in that. You may remember.
How did you change your mind on that?
Oh, I didn't change my mind on that.
You still want to keep the earnings tax?
If the city of St. Louis is going to be a standalone entity, there is no way for us to get rid of the earnings tax. No way. It's $180 million, and the payroll tax is another 38 or 40 million. But if we want to approach this as a region, then if we have the revenue, then we don't have to have the earnings tax. And as you know, there's a state constitutional amendment which was passed 10 years ago, give or take. I don't know exactly how long ago, which says that there can't be an earnings tax anywhere else in the state of Missouri, so other than where it is today.
Samantha?
Two quick questions for you. On the city-county merger, more mayors have come out saying that they may be against it. Do you have any comment to that, and where do you stand?
Well, I think that's somewhat to be expected. I think that we, in this region, and I'm talking about city and county here, we spend a lot of time fussing about, will this new development, this new big box store, will it be in the city of St. Louis or will it be in the county? Will it be in Hazelwood or will it be in Wildwood? We're fussing among ourselves there. And what we ought to be focusing on is how are we going to compete, not with one another internally, not within the family, if you will, but between St. Louis and Louisville, or St. Louis and Nashville, or St. Louis and Indianapolis, or Denver, or Austin. The competition, folks, is not here internally. We need to have an economic development effort that positions us to be successful as a region against other regions in the country.
Last one for me. Circuit attorney was involved in possible perjury accusations with the Greitens case. Any comment to that?
I don't. That's in the courts, I believe, and that's not something that I'm involved in.
Mayor, I want to get back to the announcement you made earlier today appointing Dr. Eccles to the health director.
Thank you.
Is it a goal for you to put a doctor, an MD, in the role of health director?
Well, the charter actually calls for that, so that's always good to try to comply with. And I think that bringing the experience and the expertise and the knowledge to the department is going to be a good thing. I wasn't always confident that we were going to be able to accomplish that, but I think we've been really fortunate to get to know Dr. Eccles and to have Dr. Eccles be willing to step up and lead our health department.
One thing, Mayor, that has emerged after the Better Together report has come out is that people don't yet understand the math. Do you understand the math in terms of extinguishing the city's debt? And does Lambert privatization proceeds, would that play any role in that?
Do I understand the math? Yeah, I understand that there will be some efficiencies and that one government runs more efficient than another. Now, this is a process. You know, you don't put together the old city and the old county, or let's say Bayer and Monsanto, or Express Scripts and Cigna. You don't put those entities together in one day. This is a process, and over the process, yes, I'm confident that debt can be paid off, that we'll end up with a more efficient government, but we have to start. There's a lot of interest in the details, and I get that. I tend to be rather detail-oriented myself. I get that, but though the interest in every detail should not outweigh the good of starting on this process of merging the city and the county. So there'll be hundreds. I think I said this in my last media availability. There are hundreds of decisions yet to be made, but those decisions will only be made if we're able to establish this new class of city in the state constitution, which is the new metro city. And then we're going to have to work really hard on this. Everybody, all the communities, the city and the county, the employees, we're going to have to work hard to bring this together.
Mayor, have you given the new health director any particular charge, or that's not the right word, but instructions, any new initiatives?
I haven't given him instructions yet because he hasn't started.
I understand that.
Okay, so
Any issues you want him to deal with more than others, or I mean, just any emphasis or just anything?
there's a lot of emphasis on many subjects in the health department, whether it's Ryan White grant, whether it's the flu epidemic that we report on every week, whether there are STDs, there are many, many issues having to do with that. We will, once he starts, he becomes an employee, he starts getting a paycheck, we'll sit down and we'll jointly establish some priorities.
And what will his pay level be?
$151,000 and change.
And how much was his predecessor?
Mark, I'll give that to you. I have an impression.
Okay. Oh, it is?
Yeah. All right, thank you all.
What else?
Last one? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
One last one.
One last question about Better Together. There's been a lot stated about the value of the idea in St. Louis City and St. Louis County, et cetera, but it requires a statewide vote.
It does.
People in Kansas City or Springfield or Hannibal get out of this.
What do they care? I don't think they, quote, get anything out of this except if we are able to be a more effective economic engine for the state. The St. Louis region, bigger than the city and county, but already I believe produces 45% in that neighborhood of the revenue to the state. So we're important. And when we're healthier, our state is healthier. So I see it in that way.
Did the efficiency spill over, though, in terms of saving taxpayer dollars from state taxes as well?
I don't see that direct connection. But the healthier we are, the more businesses we have here, the more jobs that we have here, the more opportunities we have for our resident, the better we all are, the state included. So,
Thank you, guys.
thank you all. Appreciate it.